2021 was just not a great year for indie games, for it almost felt like they were non-existent at all. But one stood out from the rest, which is very surprising because I never heard of this game until my buddy Wedge recommended it to me. And the game was called Inscryption. At this point in my time, I've been dying to find another story-driven game. Though he didn't tell me if the story was good or not, he just told me to play the damn game. Which I did. After a year. Now, I'm okay with any type of story. I don't care if it's about gay romance, gay furry romance, alien gay romance. I don't care. As long as the story is good, I'm down. So does Inscryption have a great story, you may ask? Well, before I answer that question, we must first dive in to see what type of story Inscryption has. Does it really hold up to the title of being the best indie game of 2021? Or it's just another overhyped indie game that players really praised it so much because it was the only game that stood out that year?
Hey there, card gamers! I'm the Lucky Carter, and this is another pack opening video. Today, I am opening Catch Monsters packs and digging for that epic, shiny Transcend Dog!
Now, if you play indie games like me, or you just played a couple bunch but the great ones like Undertale, Omori, Jetpack Joyride, and all of them shares one strong feature, and that one thing is the story itself. Undertale is an action-adventure RPG where you take on a role as a child, where you discover there's another world underneath the earth, and now you must unravel its mysteries. Omori is just depressing and there's nothing else to it. And why the heck did I say Jetpack Joyride? It was actually made by an indie developer as well. The more you know. So how about Inscryption? What is it? Well, if you search it up in Google, it will tell you it's a roguelike deck building game. And the genre for the story is one of my favorites. It's psychological horror. So I was excited to find out how they use psychological horror story to a roguelike deck building game gameplay. And to be honest, after witnessing it, they did an amazing job. Luke Carter was a great example of how to write a simple yet effective active character. To make it even better, they put up a whole mystery around the story as well. What is the old data? What is Inscryption? Who is this woman? Are we even playing this or are we watching it? And both of these elements blend well together, creating a solid story to tell. We have a character that actually does something, not being pushed by the story. And due to his actions, we caused a conflict. They are not just a bad written or a lousy excuse to happen, but it happened due to the character's actions.
What?
And this action that caused the problem was his love for cards. He kept going to garage sales to find actually rare cards to open for his contents. And when he actually found Inscryption, which is a rare pack of cards, he found the coordinates inside the pack that would seal his fate for the entire story. And what made Luke go to these coordinates without even knowing what would be there? Well, he's probably thinking there's another pack of cards of Inscryption lying around there and probably rarer cards. So bottom line, he was just curious. And this is all due to Luke's love for cards. Same goes for the other characters as well. P03, Grimora, and Magnificus are active characters in the story as well. Though we all see them in Act 3, but because they are doing something even off screen, we actually witness and see their actions have an effect in the entire story since the start of the game. They are not just some disposable MCU villain that cause a world-ending destruction only for their actions not be important or relevant when the next movie comes out. Remember the thing I said a while ago that there is a mystery revolving around the story? Well, it kinda goes like this. When we start Inscryption, the first question we ask to ourselves is that, why couldn't we start a new game? And this question alone is the reason why we kept going. Why we kept playing this game. But the more we play, the more questions we find that need some answers. Who is this mysterious guy? What is old data? Who is this game Fuma? And this is funny because we don't notice it yet, but Daniel Mullins, his magic in making indie games has already worked in the very first second, the very first time we boot up Inscryption. By just asking ourselves a simple question. Why can't we start a new game? And the final thing I want to talk about is the psychological part of the game. After asking ourselves countless of questions throughout the game, and even after beating it, there was one that stuck with us to the end. What is inside old data? And this file is the sole reason why Inscryption was made in the first place. And before Luke, previous characters before him were trying to prevent the old data from spreading. But why is it so important? Why must the old data not spread to the public? See? Questions are still building up even if we finish the game. And this is where the psychological horror is taking its effect. You start to get anxious because back then when this game was released, there was barely any answers to the questions about old data. Heck, even the ending of this game is a cliffhanger. We didn't even know if Luke succeeded or not. And what are the plans of the company that made Inscryption? What are they gonna do now after what Luke did? But after months and years that passed, an ARG happened where people participated to finally find answers to the questions of Inscryption, and at the same time, ending its story. And these answers are what follows. 1. The old data has powers of its own. Not just any magical powers, but the powers of the devil himself. There are videos and files containing that Satan himself was summoned at one point, and there are ways to do it again. Second, remember the inevitable ending that I mentioned a while ago? That ending wasn't Luke's death. That was actually P03's plan of spreading Inscryption and the old data to the entire world. Number 3, we are just witnessing the downfall of our world. Inscryption is just a pre-recorded simulation of how Luke failed to beat P03, and how P03 succeeded of spreading the information that the Russians needed back then, and now everyone has a single copy of the old data. Everyone knows that Satan is real and the end of the world is coming. And that, my fellow species, is how I find out if the story of Inscryption is any good. So, the biggest question, does it have a great story? Well, isn't it obvious? It does! It certainly does! Heck, I might consider this as one of my all-time favorites, okay? I just might consider it, but it's not final. So, why does it have a great story? Well, 1, we have great active characters to follow along, so it's not really boring. 2nd, we have a goal, a clear goal that we aim to achieve and embedded in our minds, that we just don't forget while we play, but we actually play because of that. 3rd, the spookiness is really good. Psychological horror part was amazing after I find out that the old data was actually summoning the devil himself. And we actually lost already. We don't know how long it was since Luke lost, so who knows who's doing that already. And to make matters even worse, it actually takes place in our world. So yeah, good luck finding your neighbor summoning the devil. And lastly, it was just great from the get-go. It's one of those games that from start to finish, it was very solid. There was, not really, but there was a part of the game that felt boring, but it was just due to the shift of tone for a bit, and then later on it got backed already. So yeah, overall it's really great. I highly recommend this game. It's not a overhyped video game of 2021, and I think it is the best game that came out in 2021, though I haven't played most games of that year, most indie games of that year. But hey, we'll find out soon. So yes, my fellow species, Inscryption does have a great story.
That's it. That's the video today, guys. Thank you so much, as always. And, oh yeah, what the fuck is the